It's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for joining. This week, well, the Super Bowl is officially in the books. My friends who are Philadelphia Eagles fans are currently in mourning, but it was an entertaining game, and we got some pretty big spots movie related wise, and we're going to touch on a few of them, including the Indiana Jones one, the Guardians of the Galaxy one, and the Flash one. And then we'll be talking about Luke Cage Season 1, Episode 4. But first, introducing my co host, Jacob Martin. Jacob, how's it going?
Really good. First off, it was a fun Super Bowl last night. I'm not really a big sports guy, but you know, living in a trailer with two other roommates from the school, obviously we're gonna watch a Super Bowl at some point, and it was such a competitive game. I highly enjoyed it. Shout out to those who were a fan of the Kansas City Chiefs who won the game. Good on them. That was a pretty good little win at the end. I enjoyed the game, even though I didn't have a preference of team. Halftime show was fun. It was all around the good Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was a really solid game. Because, like I said, I have friends who are big Eagles fans. I was default rooting for them, but unfortunately, it just was not their night. But congratulations to the Chiefs. They put on a hell of a game, in the words of that meme. They got us in the first half, but then they rallied back. So good on them for that. And like I said, there were a lot of good spots, or good in terms of like huge things. Some things to look forward to in the movie world, like big tentpole stuff, and we'll get into all of
Yep.
that. But Jacob, how's school going for you in Tennessee?
School's still been going pretty good. I'm really enjoying the 3 days a week school schedule that we got down here. It gives me more time to do some of these bigger assignments, and it's not stressful that way. I've enjoyed that, and it's been a really good experience. Uh, especially in my self confidence, faith, and stuff.
What are you exactly doing right now, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I usually on nights like this after school, I usually do a lot of study work. I do some studying for my classes and get some memory work done, like memory verses, and then on the days that I'm off is where I work on some of the bigger assignments like papers and stuff.
Oh, that's really cool. Is this a certain chapter of the Bible or just a broader concept?
Yeah, I got different classes based on different books. Like I got one on the Exodus this quarter, and I got another one on Joshua, another one on Proverbs, and then I got another class with multiple books, the two Thessalonians and Philemon.
Well, that sounds interesting. You'll have to keep us all apprised on where your learning takes you. But let's dive into if you have a thing that you've been watching lately. Let's talk about that briefly.
Yeah, I've watched some things. First off, I did rewatch Sinbad: Legend of the Seven Seas, which will be for this month's discussing DreamWorks, which I'm still doing on my channel. It's gonna drop, uh, I think this Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time with Ryan Cam as my co-host. All I'll say now is it's a movie where every time I watch it, the first thing I say afterward is, this movie is better than I remember. It's actually a pretty underrated hidden gem. I do highly enjoy that one. Let's see. I recently watched To Sir with Love for the first time. I think I brought that up last week. I thought that was a great little movie with Sidney Poitier. Another one I recently watched is the new 2022 version of All Quiet on the Western Front, which is getting a lot of Oscar buzz. Thought it was a solid war movie. Didn't wow me or anything. Has great technical merits, but I found a lot of the characters a bit one note, and I wasn't too big on the long runtime, but it was still a good, admirable war movie for what it was. And another interesting movie I've watched recently is My Favorite Martian, which is a 1999 Disney comedy starring Christopher Lloyd and Jeff Daniels. It's pretty much a dumb, silly comedy. If you go in with that mindset, I think you'll have a pretty decently enjoyable time with it. I didn't mind the movie. I thought Christopher Lloyd was great as the silly Martian, and it was a fun little fish out of water buddy comedy.
You know, touching on All Quiet on the Western Front, I really have to sit down and watch that because I have been intrigued to watch it for a minute now. I just haven't had the time to. And really, because like I predicted, my local theater is getting the big Oscar promotion where for a certain amount of money you get a pass and you can see as many of the Best Picture nominees as you would like. And I'm actually going to get to see Women Talking and All Quiet on the Western Front and a couple of others that were nominated. So finally going to be able to see All Quiet on the Western Front, which I've been itching to for a while now.
Yeah, it's not a bad movie. It's very disturbing to watch, though. It's definitely one of the more brutal war movies that's come out in the last few years. I put it on the same level of brutality as something like Hacksaw Ridge, but Hacksaw Ridge had more of a glimmer of hope because of the main character we're rooting for. This movie's a lot more bleak, so be prepared for that.
Yeah, and just to further cheapen the cheap plug, Jacob and I will be doing discussing DreamWorks on Thursday the 16th, not Friday. And so
Oh,
I
did I
am
say Friday?
you did, but
I'm
it's
sorry.
It's
cool. I get stuff wrong on
Thursday.
the show sometimes too, so we're so you're good. But yeah, I am looking forward to it. I'm actually going to be rewatching it tomorrow night after I get home from my workout. So it's going to be interesting because I haven't watched the movie in a minute. So it's going to be interesting to see how well it holds up or if it doesn't. Who really knows? But I've heard nothing but good things over the years. But this is the one. This was the last 2D animated one before DreamWorks ran headfirst into CG. And they've done some very good CG movies, but it's truly is the end of an era. So it's going to be interesting to go back to that. But as for me, I and I ended up going off the beaten path a bit, and I watched Once Upon a Time in the West for the first time with my father, and that movie was fantastic. It was directed by Sergio Leone, it was directed by him, yes, but it was co-written by him and future Suspiria director Dario Argento. So real sharpness behind those pens there. It's a very long movie. It's just a skosh under 3 hours, but I was riveted throughout. The basic plot is that a man simply known as the Man with the harmonica, played by Charles Bronson, and Cheyenne, played by Jason Robards, basically have to protect a widow from having her ranch taken over by a railroad company who's basically hired one of the most evil people you could ever hope to hire in the form of Frank, played by Henry Fonda. Now, going into this, I only knew Henry Fonda for stuff like heroic stuff, like Grapes of Wrath, Juror Number 12, and 12 Angry Men. Henry Fonda's a hero. He's the complete opposite of that in Once Upon a Time in the West. He is evil just from the looks of him. His eyes, his tanned exterior, like he just completely transforms himself. It's a great score by Ennio Morricone, just fantastic direction. I would put this right up there with the spaghetti westerns, the good, the bad, and the ugly, fistful of dollars and for a few dollars more in terms of quality. Sergio Leone, everything that he touched absolutely turned to gold. So if you have not seen the movie, I cannot recommend it enough. It is a long sit, but I promise it is worth it.
Yes, I have seen this movie once, and I agree with about everything you said. It is a fantastic Western. Definitely out of character for Henry Fonda to play a villain, but he absolutely pulled it off and was amazing in it. I love the score in the movie, especially when the harmonica is placed within it. There's some really great themes, and I love how like every character in the movie has their own piece of music, which stands out when you're watching the 3 hour epic. It's such a well done movie. Definitely one of the best in its genre.
Without a doubt. And then for a collab with our friend Jacob Collins from 3D Movie Cinema, I watched Army of Darkness for the first time, and it is just as good as it has been advertised. And while my favorite Evil Dead movie has always been and will continue to be Evil Dead 2, I still think Army of Darkness has more than enough to be like it's weird. The Evil Dead movies, there really hasn't been a bad one. Even the remake, which I saw a long time ago, but I will rewatch again in honor of Evil Dead Rise. Even that movie was surprisingly good from what I remember. So the Evil Dead movies have yet to miss. And from what I've heard, Ash versus Evil Dead was good as well. So it's one of those IP that have just never missed. And Army of Darkness is just so much fun. There's a part of me that really misses the very claustrophobic type of scares that it provided with the cabin in Evil Dead's 1 and 2, but just the amount of creativity that is just stuffed into less than 90 minutes is just outstanding. Bruce Campbell is such the perfect action hero in that he is so beatable, but at the same time, he just musters enough courage to just destroy everything in sight. It's a delicate balance, but he crushes it every time. And really, I'm glad that I have now, in fact, seen this because it took me long enough, but I have seen it and it was fantastic as advertised.
Yeah, this is an unpopular opinion, I know, but Army of Darkness is actually my favorite of the Evil Dead trilogy. I enjoy all the Evil Dead movies, but Army of Darkness stood out to me the most because, yeah, it has all the creativity and the practical effects, and there's still some horror elements within that movie. But I love it when Sam Raimi like doubled down on like the camp comedy and made the films absolutely bonkers to watch. Bruce Campbell's great in all three movies, but I think I enjoyed him the most in Army of Darkness, how he played around with his character and some of the physical comedy. And the movie had just some pretty good quotable lines as well that has stood out to me since I watched it. Like, all right, this here is my broomstick. But
That's such a fantastic line, and I love the secret code of activating the Necronomicon is Klaatu Verata Nikto, which is an homage to The Day the Earth Stood Still, the original one. I just love that little Easter egg, and he gets there and he's like, Klaatu Verata no. So I just love that little moment there.
yeah, it's a great movie. Like I said, it's my favorite in the Evil Dead trilogy.
And then earlier today, and doing something that I'll be announcing a little later for something that I'm going to be involved in the trivia world. I watched Airheads for the first time, starring Brendan Fraser, Steve Buscemi, and Adam Sandler. And it's a comedy about probably the worst like metal band you've ever heard of that desperately wants for their song to be heard on the local radio station. So they burst in with water pistols and they threaten the voice of the big show on the radio, played by Joe Matagna, the head of the station, played by a pre Better Call Saul Michael McKean, and they force and just comedy ensues. And Adam Sandler gets a bit of a bad rap, and trust me, a lot of that is very deserved. Jack and Jill, Little Nicky, too many other movies to even mention. But when he's on, and he's on in this, along with Brendan Fraser, who's great, and Steve Buscemi, who's just pretty much great in everything he's ever been in. It's a comedy that I feel like doesn't get talked about anymore, but I was just having the best time with this and just seeing the people that there's in this movie. That you got Ernie Hudson as a cop who was one of the Ghostbusters, among other things. You have the late Chris Farley as his partner, and then you got Michael Richards, who would who was in the middle of his big run on Seinfeld at the time, playing Michael Richards. So it's a fun little mid '90s comedy that doesn't overstay its welcome. It's less than 90 minutes, or it's just about 90 minutes. So I give this one a very, very high recommendation. It's very underrated.
Yeah, I didn't know this movie existed until I saw there was like a recent, I think, Hollywood Reporter roundtable discussion with Adam Sandler and Brendan Fraser, and they talked about being in a movie together. And I'm like, I didn't know they ever were in a movie together way early in their careers. And it's very much piquing my interest because I'm not as big on Adam Sandler, but I really love Brendan Fraser. So it's definitely something I'll probably watch at some point.
Yeah, well, what have you all been watching lately? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, well, let's get into Luke Cage, Season 1, Episode 4. This episode is called Step into the Arena, or Step in the Arena. As he rescues a victim of Cottonmouth's vengeance, Luke remembers his earlier life and the conspiracy that led to his superhuman strength. So this episode is basically we learn how Luke Cage became Luke Cage. He was a prisoner at Seagate Prison, is about as corrupt as Shawshank Penitentiary, if you really think about it. Find out that Shades, one of Cottonmouth's little goons, actually has more of a connection to Luke than we really thought. And we find out why and how Luke becomes basically a literal man of steel. Jacob, what did you think of this episode?
Um, I thought this was another great episode in Luke Cage. To me, the show didn't find its footing until episode 3, and this episode solidified why I think this show has potential to be a really good show. I'm usually a fan of origin stories and comic book superhero media anyway, and some of my favorite episodes of these superhero shows is when episodes really dive deep into a character's past and why the characters are this way. I love the Wilson Fisk focused episode in Daredevil season 1, uh, the Jessica Jones centered flashback episode in her season, and I like the episode of WandaVision where we dived into Wanda's past. Those are just some examples. This is another one that falls in that tradition where we see the origins of Luke Cage, his time in prison, being caught in a corrupt system, and the experiments that made him Luke Cage. I thought it was very compelling storytelling. I really enjoyed Mike Coulter's performance in this. I was pretty upset at the Warden character. Definitely, like you said, Ryan brought a lot of Shawshank Redemption vibes because of how vile and corrupt he was. And I enjoyed, I think, seeing the cross cutting between the flashback and the present day storylines, especially when we get to a montage of Luke Cage punching at the end. I thought was pretty well done. And even the end surprised me. Like I didn't expect Luke to actually reveal who he was at the end. I thought that was pretty interesting, and I'm excited to see where it's going to lead because I always assumed Luke Cage was more of an in the shadows type of guy. So where that's going to lead throughout the rest of the season, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, all I have to say is get yourself someone who looks after you like Squabbles looks after Luke in this episode because I liked Squabbles. I thought he was great.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed that character too, and it saddened me that the way he went out the way he did because I enjoyed that character so much.
Yeah, it's really sad that they killed him off, but I mean, if you're gonna get Luke Cage, I mean, if you're gonna make an omelet, you gotta break some eggs. So I mean, gonna miss him, but it was nice to see him in this brief period. Shout out to Craig Mums Grant for his performance there. He did a great job.
I actually got one question. The psychologist that Luke Cage befriended throughout the course of this episode, and they have like a little bit of a relationship at the end of the flashback. Do you think that was the character Luke Combs event? No, not Luke Combs. That's a completely different Luke. Luke Combs is a country singer.
Fear never broke his heart.
No, Luke Cage is a completely different Luke. Okay. let me get back to where I was. So that psychologist character that Luke has a relationship with at the end of the flashback. Do you think, Ryan, that is the character that Luke ended up marrying and is the one that got killed off and was connected with Jessica Jones's past?
I mean, that would be the logical conclusion. I mean, the MCU is all about these events connect and making sure the continuity is airtight. So if I were Kevin Feige, I would make sure that that would be airtight. So if I were
Yeah,
writing this, that would make the most logical sense. We will see. However,
yeah, yeah. It
my
was never
answer would
set in
be
stone that that was her, but I was thinking that it was because that's where it felt like it was leading. But it seems like there's a little bit more story with that.
there's definitely some juice left to squeeze in the Reva character. That is definitely for sure. And like shout out to Theo Rossi for his portrayal as Shades. Like he's just a I can't curse because I'm in front of Jacob and he's gonna be a priest soon. So or not a priest, but a
Preacher.
pastor.
I'm not Catholic.
But I'm not gonna curse in front of you, but I mean he's just a horrible he's just a barnacle. Like he's just clinging on to the big fish before he jets off to another big fish.
Yep. That. Yeah. That's. Yeah. Even the whole thing with the underground fight thing that was going on, it was pretty brutal at times. Seeing some people were getting paid off by the warden and were enjoying it just to get paid, but Luke Holmes, like I said, Luke Holmes again.
Do you need to go listen to Beer Never Broke
It
My
never
Heart?
broke
Just
my
like
heart.
get it out of your system?
I don't know why I keep saying Luke Combs. I think it's just because I've heard all I've heard since I moved to Tennessee is nothing but country music. I think Luke Combs has been on my brain. I don't know, but uh, but yeah, Luke Cage did not want any part of that underground fighting, and he kept the more he dived deep into, the more trouble he got in such an awful place.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. But we are officially a quarter of the way through Luke Cage season one. Jacob, are you enjoying it so far?
It had a rough start, but I've enjoyed the last two episodes, and I'm excited to see what happens next. I will say I miss Cottonmouth. I really enjoy Mahershala Ali so much in the series. I'm sure he'll be back in the next one, and I'm excited to see how Luke Cage. I said it right. Luke Cage is going to take him out.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have. There's definitely a lot of threads that they could do to make this to keep the interest going. There's definitely interesting things that they are building up for the rest of this show, and I hope that they continue to do that. But what did you all think of Luke Cage season one, episode four? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob. Well, let's get into the main event for the evening. Let's talk about some big game spots. Now, we're not going to be talking about all of these, just the ones, just the biggest ones. And let's just get this one out of the way right now. Let's talk about the Flash one because by far and away, this is the one getting the most attention. Jacob, why don't you go first before I say what I've got to say?
Um, well, the Flash is kind of tricky because on one hand, you have all the behind the scenes problems, the drama surrounding its lead actor Ezra Miller. Then on the flip side, you watch the trailer to the Flash, and you see so many amazing stuff in that trailer. This really cool multiverse story with Barry Allen, you know, trying to save the multiverse or the universe that his mom's still alive, and then it all comes into chaos, and then you get some really cool visuals in there. I mean, I enjoyed the trailer. In fact, I love the trailer. The rumors I've been hearing about that this movie is apparently doing really well in test screenings. I'm really seeing that when watching the trailer because this trailer was absolutely epic. I mean, you got Ben Affleck coming back as Batman. Michael Keaton back as Batman, which seeing him back was awesome. I'm excited to see his return to a DC movie. Supergirl's going to be in this movie, and she looked like she's going to be a fun character. General Zod, it looks like he's back. I didn't know he was coming back, and he's like going to be the main villain of the movie, played by Michael Shannon, who was in Man of Steel. I'm excited to see him back. The Ezra Miller controversy aside, I know he's a troubled guy. I can't defend the actions that he's done to others, but separating the drama from the movie itself, I think the movie's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope it's going to be like a good finale of sorts of the old DCU before we move into James Gunn's DC universe. I think this would be a good little transition between the old and the new.
Yeah. Set aside the whole Ezra Miller thing, which I know is very tough, but just for the sake of right now, setting that aside, I was not a big fan of this
Ooh.
trailer. I thought it was just references, and I've complained in the past. That's why The Rise of Skywalker was my least favorite movie of 2019. It was just references for 2.5 hours. No, just enough story to make it somewhat feasible, but then just you remember this, you remember this, you remember this. And I feel like this trailer was just nothing but member berries as far as the eye can see. Remember Michael Keaton as Batman? Remember Zod? Remember Michael Shannon as Zod? And just either stuff that has never shown up and to the casual eye, just no one really knows about, or B, stuff that just hasn't been on in years. And just, I don't know. I wanted to like this because there are a lot of people and ideas. I actually watched a few seasons of the Flash TV show on the CW, so I'm not opposed to the Flash. I like the Flash. And you got Michael Keaton back as Batman. Like I mentioned, I'm a big fan of Michael Keaton as an actor. I think he is very good at what he does. All the stuff aside, Ezra Miller has done very good in movies before. Watch We Need to Talk About Kevin if you want proof of that, or don't, because that movie is screwed up. But that's another conversation for another time. I just felt like this was DC trying to do Spider-Man No Way Home, but just with the Flash, with just three different versions of Batman. I'm just sitting there like I get it. The DCU needs a reboot, and it looks like they're going to do the Flashpoint storyline, which, okay, yes, that's cool and all, but I feel like it's just the references are just going to be mostly empty. And I don't know if I'm alone in that. I don't know how hot of a take that's going to be, but that's my thoughts on it. What I am going to see the movie though, so I will hold off any judgment. I'm not going to kill the idea of the movie in my head. I'm not going to kill it stone dead. I want to see it first before I make any grand sweeping statements. But with what we got, I just wasn't impressed.
I think that probably is a hot take because I've looked at a lot of opinions on this trailer because it was the most talked about. And the Ezra Miller stuff aside, most people were really looking forward and hyped on this trailer like crazy. And I was getting into the trailer honestly. The whole thing with the references to me, as long as these references and fan service pays off, I'm not as critical on that, I guess, compared to you. And I didn't mind Rise of Skywalker either, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I know the film, I think, had some pretty good test screenings, and James Gunn, when he did his little promo, said he had seen it and thought it was excellent. So I'm hoping it's going to be a good one. Controversies aside.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to kill the idea of the movie in my head. I mean, it's coming out June 16th, which I was not expecting it. I was expecting it to come out in November. They're actually making this a summer movie, which is particularly bold, but It seems like this is going to be the last of the gobbledygook that was the DCEU, closing of one chapter and the beginning of another, which is only for the best. But what did you all think of the Flash spot? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. And then we got a ton of others. We got Disney giving a 100th anniversary look, which, Jacob, I don't know if you saw that one or not, but I thought that was particularly very good.
Yeah, I saw that one during the game, and I thought that was a neat trailer.
Then we got the trailer for Fast and Furious 10. It is official. They have made 10 of these. I was not crazy about Fast 9. I thought it was just, it's reached the point now where it's just become white noise. Just Vin Diesel and his friends doing increasingly crazier stuff and just realizing that they're both bulletproof, flame-proof, and just, they're basically mutants at this point. But what did you think of the spot, Jacob, if you did
Um,
see it?
yeah, I saw that spot before the Super Bowl. I think the trailer dropped that weekend. And yeah, I'll admit I didn't mind F9 when I saw it in theaters, but the more I thought about it, it's now in my bottom three in the franchise. It's gotten so absurd now to the point where it's almost like a parody of the franchise to me. And to me, I'm questioning the franchise already been milked dry at this point. Like even nine left such a bad stain to where it hurt some of my favorite Fast and Furious movies. Like some of the stuff some of my favorite aspects in seven, nine undid all that and made it to where seven doesn't matter anymore, which I felt like should have been the finale to the franchise. And so that's left such a big stain as someone who enjoyed some of the earlier, especially the middle Fast and Furious movies, like 5 to 7, were probably my favorite ones in the series. So watching this trailer, I got nothing out of it, honestly. Like, yeah, I like these actors. I've enjoyed the past movies, but you got to end the franchise at some point. And this just looked like the same old, same old. Yeah, Jason Momoa looks like he's having the time of his life in this. Good on him, but this trailer did nothing for me. I felt nothing.
Yeah, and they're trying to paint the picture that Jason Momoa is related to Reyes, who was the big bad guy in Fast Five, even though Momoa was nowhere to be found
He
in
wasn't
Fast
even in
Five.
five. That connection made no sense.
You're stretching this concept to the point where even Saltwater Taffy is looking at you like, no, like just stop. You're killing yourself. It's just and I'm not coming across as any kind of a hater here. I think Fast and the Furious, the first one, is great fun. Too Fast, Too Furious is a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. It's not great, but I do love it, especially for Tyrese's line of El Ejectocito Cuz, which is just a phenomenal line. And then Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, which is in my top three of the series. I love that movie to pieces. It sucks what they did with Fast 9 and Han, but that's another story for another time. And then Fast 5, which is my favorite of the series. But it's just gone to the point where it's like every one of these characters has just hit a Starman from a Super Mario Bros. Game, and they're just all they're just invincible. And you can't do anything to stop them. Whack them with cars, be like, walk through fire. So I don't know. Like these movies are just like they've just become officially white noise to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Well, then we got a spot for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We got more of a better look at Mads Mikkelsen as the villain. We got more action from Harrison Ford as Indy. And then we got Karen Allen back as Marion Ravenwood, which I mean,
Ooh. I didn't see the trailer, so hey, it's good to see her back.
oh my bad. I should have asked. I'm
No,
sorry.
you're good. Hey, I was hoping she was going to be back anyway, so that's good news to me.
So that was on me. My bad. But but with that prospect, I'm still worried as all get out for this movie because I'm just afraid that we're just going to see a slow Harrison Ford, which is just not something that I'm looking forward to. But again, we got Harrison Ford back. We're getting Marion back. It's being directed by James Mangold. It's starring Mads Mikkelsen as the villain. He's one of my favorite actors working today. Begrudgingly, I have to admit that there's actually a lot of good stuff here.
See, I haven't seen the new trailer. I've just seen the teaser trailer that dropped a couple months ago. This is one of my most anticipated of the year. I might be too optimistic on it because I'm a fan of the franchise, but I think there's a lot that this movie has going for it. Harrison Ford, who's still committed to playing this character, which, him being like almost 80, that impresses me. Directed by James Mangold, who's directed nothing but great films like, Walk the Line, 310 to Yuma, Ford versus Ferrari, Logan. Night and Day wasn't really that great, but other than that, like everything he touched that I've seen turns to gold, and he's made some great movies and is such a good director. And like you said, Mads Mikkelsen's the villain. I know Antonio Banderas is also in this movie. That excites me too. Uh, the first trailer definitely reminded me why I enjoyed the Indiana Jones franchise so much. And I'm hoping it's a better swan song for the character than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I didn't hate Crystal Skull, but it's easily the weakest in an otherwise great franchise. So hopefully Dial of Destiny is a better final note for the character.
Yeah, I sincerely hope so. And of course, those people are out there like they're going to make Indy's niece into the new Indiana Jones. Or like I there's nothing to suggest that that is going to happen. You're just being conspiracy theorists at this point.
Or you don't like women in general.
I wouldn't be surprised if that would be the case, but again, that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But before I continue, did you see the Guardian spot?
I did see that one.
Okay, so what did you think of that?
That one's interesting. That I think the only reaction to that one I had seen was Sean Chandler's reaction, and he didn't like the weird, like the tonal shifts in the trailer where you still got the goofy dark humor, and you got like the over the top rock music played with like very serious stuff in the trailer. Like you see like Rocket getting experimented on and stuff. But to me, that's just James Gunn in general. Like James Gunn has like a dark, twisted mind, and I'm used to that style of humor at this point. I think Guardians 3 out of all the comic book movies, it's even though The Flash, I feel like was the better trailer of the Super Bowl spots, I'm still more excited to see Guardians 3 because I've been a fan of the other Guardians films. I'm more familiar with James Gunn as a filmmaker, and I've enjoyed everything he's done Guardians wise. Suicide Squad was a great movie too. Uh, I'm excited to see the big emotional payoff to these characters and seeing the big swan song of what James Gunn's bringing to the MCU before he makes the full move to DC. And I think it's going to be a good emotional goodbye with a lot of these characters.
Yeah, Dave Bautista said in an interview that this would be his last time as Drax the Destroyer. So, needless to say, this movie's going to have a body count. Who's going to be going? It's hard to say, but it's looking like this will be the last time we see this iteration of Guardians of the Galaxy, which will be very sad to say the least, because just from an objective point of view, in terms of quality, the Guardians movies have the highest string of quality in the MCU. There have been, like, Iron Man had one good movie and then two and three. Outside of maybe Captain America, the Guardians of the Galaxy have the best string of movies, or standalone movies, if you will.
Yeah, I would say Guardians, Captain America, and then I know some people were pretty split on Age of Ultron, but I personally enjoy that one. And I think all four of the Avengers movies are great in their own right.
Yes, I definitely agree with you on that. But let's pivot now to I actually wanted to talk about this, Jacob. I don't know if you saw. Did you see the trailer for Air?
Oh, is that the one with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck?
That one.
I did see that one.
Because it's actually directed by Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck is quitting his day job at Dunkin' Donuts and returning back to the director's chair. And God bless him for it, because most of the movies he's directed have been really good. And
Yep.
it's a biography about Nike, and it looks like we're going to get to see a young Mike or someone play a young Michael Jordan. So I think there's a lot to enjoy here. We got Ben Affleck, we got Matt Damon, and we got Viola Davis, and that's three things I really
Yep.
like.
Yeah, the trailer I think had a lot of potential. Like, when was the last movie Ben Affleck directed? He did that. Didn't he do that gangster movie that flopped a few years ago?
Live
What
by
was that?
Night, and I
Yeah, I
think
didn't see. I didn't see
it,
that one, but I've seen his other directing efforts. He did what? Gone Baby Gone, The Town, and Argo. I think those were all his movies.
yeah, and I've seen Argo, and Argo is fantastic.
Yeah, they're all really good movies, and hopefully this is like his big directing comeback movie. And obviously, I love when Matt Damon and Ben Affleck team up together. They've always had that good little camaraderie friendship. So seeing them together in a movie is always going to be something special.
Yeah, I've actually read Shoe Dog, Phil Knight's book, his biography on him creating Nike. So this is going to be very interesting, and it's going to be premiering April 5th on Prime Video before it goes to select theaters. So
Oh,
that's going
before we move on, Ryan, did you know that the son of Phil Knight, the creator of Nike, is Travis Knight, who's running Leica?
I did know that, and that's one talented family. That's all I will say.
Yep.
Creating shoes and creating Kubo and the Two Strings. Nice.
Yeah, works for me.
But what did you all think of the big game spots? Which one was your favorite? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. And that's it. That's another episode of the books. Jacob, thank you so much. It is a privilege as always. Tell the people where they can find you.
Well, they can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook. And of course, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I haven't been doing as much movie reviews since I've moved to Tennessee and started school. But what I've been doing lately is I've been doing weekly live streams every weekend called What I've Watched, where I go through all the movies I've watched in the past week. And then I'll take the live stream and then edit them down into smaller videos and upload them as movie reviews. We're recording this on a Monday night. Video that just dropped at the time of recording this is To Sir with Love, which was from a previous week live stream. But some of the other videos I got uploading to the channel real soon from past live streams include my reviews of my favorite Martian, the made for TV sequel to Sir with Love 2, All Quiet on the Western Front, and also join me. Of course, this is dropping Wednesday, so join us tomorrow, Thursday night at 9 p.m., where we'll be talking about Sinbad for my Discussing DreamWorks podcast with my good buddy Ryan. So be on the lookout for all those coming to my channel.
Yes, definitely go give a big subscribe to Jacob and join us Thursday night at 9 o'clock Eastern to for Discussing DreamWorks, talking about Sinbad and the Sinbad and the Legend
The
of the Seven.
Legend of the Seven Seas.
Thank you. Sinbad and the Legend of the Seven Seas. It's going to be a lot of fun. And as for this channel, I will be continuing my road to Creed 3 by talking about the original Creed from 2015, directed by some guy named Ryan Coogler, who's gone on to do a few things of note. So definitely check that video out when it does in fact drop. And as for this channel, if you did like the video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below. And if you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. For Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. Take care.